A home is a lot of work. Just plain work. When work at home is planned and organized for cooperation, there can usually be more time for leisure.
I'm certainly in favor of those things. Leisure, fun.
Who isn't?
Wouldn't we all be happier if we worked out a little system for living together in harmony?
But how can we manage them?
We'll have to work out the full answer together.
Say, Mom, you're swell.
Most family problems can be solved through frank and friendly discussion, which points the way to a happy family life.
You know, this is beginning to be quite a family project.
It certainly is.
Yes, just like your family, right? Exactly like your family. Hey guys, so welcome to Love Lake Norman. We're really glad you're here. Every week we have one goal in mind. It is to help you find and follow Jesus. That's why we exist. And so we want this to be a place where you can belong even before you believe, and where you can come and find answers to your questions, and you can come explore at your own pace who God is. We're always going to invite you to take a next step. And so that's what this series is about. Now, a series like this is kind of hard. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like, it's a little difficult to do a series called What Every Family Needs to Know. And in fact, today's talk is called What Every Father Needs to Know. And it sounds really specific. And the fact is this: we have a wide range of families and different family situations here. We have single people here. We have singles who will be parents one day. We have people who are married with no kids. We have parents with little ones. We have parents with teenagers. We have parents whose kids have all grown up and they've gone out of the house. And we have students in the room too who one day most likely will be parents. Hopefully not very soon, but one day that probably will happen. And so we understand the challenges of a series like this, but here's what I want you to know. Every week there's going to be something for you wherever you're coming from, wherever you are, whoever you are. And in each of the weeks of this series, which is going to last 4 weeks, we're going to take a little bit different angle. So next week, we're going to talk about what every mother needs to know, but dads, you're going to want to be here next week as well as the rest of you. The week after that, we're going to talk about what every child needs to know. And the fourth week, we're going to talk about what every spouse needs to know. And so it's a very relationship-oriented, family-oriented series that we are in. But our goal is always to draw you back to Jesus. And so it's hard to say things about a particular age group. My kids are 19 and 17 and 14 right now, and and part of my little unique part of my story is raising them in the last about 8 years as a single parent, and we know every stage is different. And so I'm just speaking to you from the place that I'm coming from. I don't have experience in them all, leaving the house yet. I've blocked out the days of diaper changing. Can I, you know what I'm talking about, parents? Like, I blocked that out. Like, that, I don't even know if that happened in my house or not, but some of you are right in the middle of that phase of life. But we need to talk about this. What we're going to talk about today, we need to talk about as a church, because we have a room full of parents, or a lot of people who will be at some point in their life. So it's been a lot of trial and error for me. I'll just say, as a parent, a lot of trial and error. I learned a lot from my kids. I learned a lot from a lot of you who, there are a bunch of amazing parents in this room who have done so many things well. I've learned a lot from making mistakes and trying to recover from those mistakes. And so this is not a technique-oriented series. It's not a technique kind of thing. It's not how to discipline your kids. It's not how to get them to do exactly what you want them to do. And I'm sorry about that. It's not how to get them to eat everything on their plate. There are resources for all of those things. It's also not 10 ways to parent your kids, because when you start becoming, going down the parent journey, what you start to discover is 10 ways to parent. It really ends up becoming like 1,001 things you might want to try, right? Because it's all it's hard to get really black and white. There's so many different things going on in the life of a parent. So I'm leaning on some people here. I got a Reggie Joyner, who's an expert in the area, a pastor named Andy Stanley, and a lot of the work that they've done, but also on my experience as a youth pastor and a pastor, where I've spent lots and lots of time talking to hundreds and hundreds of different families and kids and parents, and I've sat with them and talked to them about various issues at various times. And what a lot of times what happens is you kind of hear certain issues going on, you're like, that's really interesting. I have no answer for you in that particular issue or that particular problem. But so I've watched a lot of you and how you parent, and there are so many people here that are an encouragement to me because you're doing a terrific job. More important, we're going to lean into what the Bible has to say. And it has a lot to say about parents and children. And it also has a lot to say about your own relationship with God, with Him being the Father. But there's so much wisdom in this book that God gives us for parents. It's so practical, it's so relevant. And the passages we're going to talk about this morning, I think, are just critical for understanding what it looks like in this confusing kind of parenting world. But I know how some of you are. Especially you dads. I know how you think because I do the same thing. You're probably thinking, I don't need to hear someone talk about parenting. I don't need anybody to tell me. I already know how to do it. Like I was a kid one time. I know what it's like to be a kid, so I know what it's like to parent. I was a teenager once. I know how to do this. And that is like saying, hey, I have lived in a house before. I think I'll go build one. Or it's like, I had surgery one time. I think I'll go perform one. Yes, I think I will. It doesn't work that way. You can't just stay in a Holiday Inn one night and the next day know how to be a perfect parent. Just because you've been a child doesn't mean that you have answers. That's why relying on people around us who've done it well is so important, and relying on what the Bible has to say to us and putting it into practice is so critical. And so I want to give you 3 questions today, and I want to invite you to tune in with me wherever you're coming from. Fathers, also moms and people to be, or if your kids have already left the house, I want you to lock in with me on these 3 questions I'm going to give you today. There's 3 areas of focus that I want to give you when it comes to the parenting world. And this is whether you're thinking about being a parent at some point, or you're thinking about this today for like the first time, you never really thought about it. Or if your kids are graduated and long gone, or somewhere in between, if you're married, if you're single, whatever. I want to give you 3 questions that you can ask wherever you are. And this will be like a grid to lay over the top of where you are as a parent. And I think if you do that, you're going to reap a lot of rewards out of that. Because we all want to raise kids that are healthy and that are balanced. And I think these questions are going to help us do that. But so often as a parent, we tend to offload our parenting to someone else. We tend to give up responsibility to other people in our lives, like teachers, or like our children's ministry volunteers, or like a youth leader, or a neighbor, or we kind of parent by committee with a bunch of people around us. Or the truth is, come on, let's tell the truth. There's so much going on in our lives, and things are going so fast that you can't remember right now the last time you had a 5-minute conversation with your son, with your daughter, where you actually sat down face to face and you talked about what's really going on in their life. Or maybe you don't remember the last time you actually all ate dinner together. Like a lot of parents have given up influence, or they think, very mistakenly, they think that they don't have any influence in the first place to give up. So I want to give you a little perspective on the whole conversation about influence. We tend to think as parents we don't have any, and as kids get older, we tend to think we have less and less and less. But let's just talk about it as it relates to the church. Let's talk about it as it relates to the church. There are 40 Skittles in here. It looks like not even 40, but it's actually 40 Skittles. I counted them out. In a typical year, in the life of a church, if you attend regularly, and let's say you come like really regularly, and you back out vacations and you back out sick days, the church has about 40 hours a year with your kid. If you have a kid here, you bring your kid here regularly. The church has about 40 hours a year with your kid. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. You think sometimes the church has influence like that, but that is not a whole lot of influence. Parents, if you have a kid in your house, you know how many hours a year you have with your kids? About 2,000. About 2,000 hours a year you have with your kids. Which one of these is more influential? If the church is smart And we try to be smart. If the church is wise, we try to be wise with how we approach our student ministry, with how we approach our kids ministry. We will leverage our 40 into the 2000 because we got to understand this is where the influence is. No one in the world has more influence in the life of your kid than you. No one. Not the church, not anybody else, you. You have these hours in the life of your kid. As a church, we're smart if we decide to say, let's figure out how to help you have the best 2,000 hours in the year. And so we try to do that in our kids' ministry because it's built around this truth. And we got to build our church around this truth too. No one has more influence in the life of a kid than the parent. And what happens at home is more important than what happens here. What happens at home is more important than what happens here. You have 2,000 hours every year. Ainsley, don't touch those. She wants to so badly. I know. You could sneak up here and probably get some. I wouldn't even pay attention. So the truth that we are all fighting is this. There's another truth that we're all fighting too. There is this pressure in society to build kids that are experience rich. Like they're experience rich. They have amazing experiences. And what happens is we have this pressure, this cultural trend to create kids who are experience rich and leave them relationship poor. So we send our kids on summer trips to Europe or to the scouting trips to the Grand Canyon or to basketball camp, which I send my kids to, or soccer practice or dance. None of those things are bad, but we send them to these experiences because we want our kids to be, this word, well-rounded. We want well-rounded kids, and so we spend our money, we spend our time, we spend these things providing experiences that we hope will enhance our kids. But as a society, here's what happens. We have the best experiences as our kids do that life has to offer. We have a bunch of kids with the best experiences life has to offer. And listen, very little in terms of influential relationships. Ask yourself this, though. When you think about your kids as an adult, think about when your kid is all grown up as an adult. What does that look like in your mind? What do you want that to look like? Think about the most important things that you want to see in their life when they're all grown up. You know what I bet? I bet it would center on the quality of their relationships. I bet that your hopes and your dreams, when you think about your children, are wrapped up in, I hope they have healthy relationships in all kinds of areas of their life. Because what does it take to be successful in this world? It takes the ability to develop good relationships in marriage, in friendships, in business, in every part of life. It takes the ability to develop good relationships, but the problem is we get caught up so much right now in providing great experiences, the right experiences, that they become experience rich, but relationship poor. Are you with me? Now, it's not on purpose. It just happens. It just happens. But dads in the room, think about parents that you admire. Think about other fathers that you see that you admire. Who are the people in your life that you think they got it right? Like they are doing it right. I bet this is true. I bet that they have kids who are relationship rich while possibly being experience poor. And so here's the question for you. If you want to have the most influence with your kids, what are you going to do about that? I would say this. Let's make making them relationship rich your top priority. Now, what we know is true if you're an adult. Here's what I know about you, because it's true about me as well. Here's what we know about each other. This is just true if you're an adult, a parent, a mom, a father, whoever you are. We are the sum total of our experiences and our decisions and our relationships. That's what makes us up. Our experiences, our decisions, and our relationships. Now think about this with me. Your experiences, you've had a lot of them in your life, and they all point to this and all make you who you are. The positive ones, the negative ones, all of your experiences in life have impacted who you are. Think about that with your decisions that you've made in your life. All of your decisions, we can look back at the key decisions that we've made. They've all impacted exactly who you are, where you went to school. They've impacted your marriage, who you decided to marry, your career path. Maybe there was a risk that you took that shaped who you are. These decisions in your life make who you are. They just kind of create who you are. The other thing is this, not only experiences, not only decisions, but relationships, both positive and negative, have impacted us in incredible ways. All the people in your life, think about all the people, good and bad, who've impacted you. There's a lot. That's what we know is true about us. Now, here's what we know is true about kids. Here's what we know is true about kids. Kids, our kids are the sum total of their experiences and their decisions and their relationships. They're like that too. Now, as a parent, if you're a parent in here, think about when your kids were little, or maybe where they are right now. There are some experiences that you can control in the life of your kid. There's a lot that you can't. Let's just be honest. There's a lot of things that happen in life that are out of your control that your kids and my kids experience. When my son Luke was 5 years old, it was time for him to go to kindergarten. Now, he has two older siblings, an older brother and an older sister, and he was so excited about getting on the bus. He loved that school bus, and so we would wait when the other kids were a little older and he wasn't ready to go, and he was always wanting to see the bus and look at the bus and couldn't wait till he could get on the bus. Typical third child, like fears nothing, is just ready. And so that first day of kindergarten, so excited. There was no way I was driving. He was like, we're riding the bus. I'm riding the bus. You're not driving me to school. And so he rode the bus, and like the second day of school, he comes off of the bus in the afternoon, and I'm waiting at the bus stop, and there are mostly other moms, hanging out there, and it's in the late afternoon or whatever, and it's me. He gets off of the bus, and in a very loud voice, he's smiling, he gets off, and he says, "Dad, what does blank mean?" Except I can't say the word that he said. And he was smiling, but the bus driver was not. And the other moms around me were starting to laugh, like really hard. He gets off and he's like, "What does blank beep mean?" And he says it over and over and over again. And I'm like, look, stop. I went to the bus driver and I just said, "What is going on?" She said, "Well, I know I'm supposed to write him up, but these other kids were saying this word, and he heard this word, and he started asking me this word on the bus." I'm like, I'm so sorry. We'll talk about it, right? I couldn't control that experience. I suppose I could, and that's why some of us don't let our kids ride the bus. I know it's the worst place, whatever. I cannot control all the words he's going to hear in his life. I can't control what he says most of the time. I cannot control most of the experiences that my kids have. Now, the other thing is this. If that's true, if they're made up of experiences, they're also made up of their decisions, the decisions that they make, and they will make decisions that are out of your control. They will. As much as you want to control the decisions your kid makes, you cannot control their decisions. They will make them. It's very hard to control your kids' decisions. But you know what impacts both of those areas? Experiences and decisions. You know what impacts both of those things? Relationships. Think about that with me. The key relationships in their life impact how they deal with their experiences, how they talk about them, how they experience those things. The key relationships that they have impacts how they deal with them, how they deal with their experiences. Their key relationships also impact how they make decisions. This is true for you, right? This is true for me. The key relationships I have impact how I make decisions. Now, dads and moms, you can have more influence here than anyone else. You can. All of these hours belong to you. You can have the influence that you want to have in their life. So I want to encourage you to start to look at it like this. Like there's 3 volume controls in the life of your kid. Well, there's 3 volume controls in the life of kids. Now, with a volume control, you can turn it up you can turn it down. The good news is this: it's never too late. I don't care how old your kids are, it's never too late to start paying attention to these three things. Doesn't matter if the kids have grown up and moved away. It doesn't matter if they're just little ones now. There are 3 volume controls that parents can turn up, that parents can turn down. Guess what they're about? Relationships. I want to share a key Bible passage with each one of these. There's so much wisdom in the scripture when it comes to parenting, when it comes to relationships. The 3 volume controls that you can turn up or you can turn down when it comes to your kids' relationships. Ready? Okay, first one is this. First volume control is this: the relationship with God volume control. The relationship with God volume control. What was this like for you? Think about when you were a kid. Think about when you were a kid. Was this turned way up for you or way down for you by your parents? Maybe they took you to church a lot. Maybe they didn't take you to church very often. Maybe they talked about God with you. Maybe they didn't talk about God with you. Maybe you could see it was important to them. Or maybe you couldn't. One of the things that I remember my father doing as I was a kid was that very quietly, he had his Bible on the table in the den, and almost every night we would be sitting around watching TV or whatever, and he would pick up his Bible and he would just start reading it. And he wasn't reading it out loud. He wasn't even trying to initiate a conversation. He was just reading it. And I grew up knowing that God was important to him. Something in me said, gosh, God must be really important to him. I grew up, and my parents, I remember they went to this Bible study that was going to last a whole year at our church, and it was going to be a real kind of a pain for their schedule. Lots of busy time in our family, lots of kids go in every different direction. They made it a priority that they went to this Bible study together. I remember that, and it made an impression on me. I was talking to a young couple here not too long ago, and they were talking about their experiences growing up when it came to their faith. And the woman said, I remember my parents would have this small group that met in our home, like every Thursday night. They would get together and they would study the Bible, but they would also eat a meal together. They would have fun together. They were friends. They would laugh. And I loved when they used to come over, and I had these fond memories of that going on in my life. There's a volume control when it comes to your relationship with God. And in your life, it might have been turned way up. It might have been turned way down. But you have the ability to turn this up in your child's life. You have the ability to turn God up in your child's life. And as a church, we just believe that that's the most important relationship you can have. That's the most important relationship you can turn up in someone's life. Here's what the book of Proverbs says. Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. You see what that says? You see why it's so important, not only for you, but for your kids. If we trust in the Lord, it says, if you trust in the Lord, he will make your paths straight. He will make your paths straight. If you trust in the Lord, he'll make your paths straight. If you can influence your kids to see who God is and to help them put their ultimate trust in him, he will make their paths straight. It's relational, but it connects in with the decisions that they make and the experiences that they have. He will make their paths straight. You can turn that dial up in your kids' lives. So let me ask you this question for this first volume control, and the question is this: what are you doing to advance your child's relationship with God? I don't care if they're 2 years old or 28. What are you doing right now to advance your child's relationship with God? And don't feel guilty about what you haven't done, but where can you start? What are you doing to advance your child's relationship with God? So there's a second volume control too that I want to give you, a second volume control, and it's this one. It's the relationship with you volume control. Now you can turn this one up and down too, can't you? What was this like for you as a child? What about with your parents? Was this important to your parents, your relationship with them? Or did you become experience rich, but relationship poor? Was it healthy, your relationship with your parents? Or was it more like that Cat Stevens song, right? Cats in the Cradle? Is that Cat Stevens? It's Harry Chapin. Thank you. Thank you. That was a test. They're like the same person to me, Harry Chapin and Cat Stevens. But was it like that song where the father realizes too late that he hasn't spent time with his kids and his boy was just like me? He'd grown up just like me. That's the way it goes, right? But was it like that? It's a sad song. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4 says it like this. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. And the kids say, amen, right? Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Isn't that passage so relational? Like it's so relationally founded. There's just this foundation of relationship in those words from the book of Ephesians. He's saying, don't turn away from your relationship with your kids. Don't do it so that you lose influence. Because that's what you got. That's the most important thing you have. That's the most valuable thing you have is your influence with them. Instead, he says, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. It has everything to do with pouring yourself into their lives, into that relationship. So let me ask you this. However old your kids are today, what are you doing to enhance your child's relationship with you? What are you doing to enhance your child's relationship with you? So there's a relationship with God, volume control. There's a relationship with you, volume control. There's a third volume control too, and it is the influences volume control. The influences volume control. Now, this is the volume control of influences that are happening outside of the home. Let me ask you this. Was this turned up in your life, or was this turned down for you growing up? Was it like too much time with your boyfriend as you look back on it, or too little time with your boyfriend? Were there too much time spent with certain friends in your life, or was there too little time that you got to spend with friends? Was there a lot of time around positive influences in your life besides your parents, or not enough time with positive influences in your life? What would you say about that for you? I got to tell you, in the Bible, there's so much practical wisdom when it comes to this particular area. I'll just share one passage with you, but there's so much here. Listen to this. Proverbs 13:20 says it like this. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. In fact, I want to get you, that is so, will you just read this out loud with me? Like, read it, you ready? Okay, here we go. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. That is so true, isn't it? I don't know where all of you are when it comes to God. Even if you're really distant from Him and you're not sure what you believe, that's just true, right? Like there's just something so true about that. The people that you hang out with are the people that you become. So, what are you doing, question number 3, to influence their relationships with their friends? I am not just talking about peers. I'm not just talking about protecting them from the bad people, okay? Like we don't want him to play with Johnny because he throws things. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, how are you influencing the people who influence your kids? Wise parents learn this, and I've seen a lot of you do it. Wise parents learn that especially as your kids get older, you have to figure out ways to get other people around them who say the same things that you say. Can I say that again? Wise parents know that you have to figure out how to get other people around your kids who say the same things you say. I love it when this happens with my own kids. I love it when there are people in their lives who I know are speaking into their life some truth and some love, and they're giving them a hug and they're taking interest in them. And sometimes I've seen my friends provide discipline to my kids, and I love it. I love it. I love it. Why? Because they have the same interest in mind that I have, and they're reinforcing the same things that I'm trying to teach them. And sometimes they're doing it better than me. I need those people around my kids. You do too. What does it look like to influence the people who are influencing your kids? So imagine if you think back in your life and you were able to turn those 3 volume knobs up or down. Think about the biggest mistake that you have ever made. What if you were able in that moment to turn the God volume up? If you were just able to go back and turn God up a little bit more? Or what if you were able at a certain point in your life to just turn that parent relationship up a little bit more, or turn a negative relationship in your life down? What if you were able to do that? Dads, fathers, and moms too. You have more influence than anyone in your kid's life. You just do. And if you focus on these three things, I just think it will provide them with relationships that help them make good and sound decisions and have a strong foundation to grow from. It's not about having all the right answers. It's just about starting with the right questions. And so if you're a parent, you have the ability, like no one else, to influence your kid. So what's the most important thing? Begin by asking these three questions. Begin by asking these three questions. What am I doing to advance their relationship with God? Second question is this: what am I doing to enhance my relationship with my child? And then, what am I doing to influence their relationships with their friends? Now, you need to also know this. It's never too late to ask these questions. Some of you are saying, it sounds great, Gerald, I wish you told me this a long time ago, but I have already blown it, like it's too late for me. It's not too late. You may have lost some time. You might have lost some time, but it's not too late. Influence can begin to happen wherever you are in the parenting process. So it's going to take effort and work on your part, but it's possible to regain your footing when you start to ask these three questions, even long after your kids are gone. There's hope. But maybe the question for you this morning is simply, what am I doing to advance my own relationship with God? And let me just say this. It starts by recognizing that you have a perfect Father in heaven who loves you perfectly. He sees you as his daughter. He sees you as his son. And he loves you so much that he sent Jesus as this one-time, all-in payment for your sin. He gave his whole self up for you so that you could have a relationship with him. Because we value relationships here. We value family relationships because he first valued his relationship with us. And that's what every father needs to know. Will you pray with me? God, you are aware of what's going on in the lives and the hearts of people in this room. Maybe the conversation today triggered some thoughts and some feelings about the struggle that we've had, about how hard it has been to be a parent, about how many times we feel like we've failed. Maybe the conversation today has just brought up some old memories that maybe some are good, maybe some aren't, about our own relationships and maybe broken relationships with parents. God, you are the healer, you are the forgiver, you are the giver of all good things, and hope is not lost today. We do not live in a hopeless world. With you, there is the opportunity every single day to improve our relationship with you, and also, God, to improve my relationship with my kids. God, as we just struggle so with providing experience after experience and feeling like we've got to keep up, and it is unrelenting. Would you just remind us today, Father, that there's a relationship with you that is way more important than an experience. And there is a relationship with us as parents that's way more important than any experience. And I pray for our kids as they grow, that they would grow into godly men and women who love you and who are relationship rich in their lives. Relationships with you, relationships with people in their lives. I pray for our kids volunteers today who pour themselves into our own children, that you would bless them and encourage them. I pray for those who work with our youth, our students, that you would encourage them as well as they're pouring themselves and trying to say the same things as parents are saying in our lives, the lives of our kids. God, meet us here, Father. We know that parenting is a battle. It is a struggle sometimes, and yet you call us to fight. You call us to be obedient. You call us to stand firm. And so I pray that our parents today would feel encouraged and strengthened. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.